I'm just, I don't know why I'm doing that, but I'm in a good mood this morning, so I'm making strange motions with my eyelids as I wait for the live stream to get started. Hello, everybody. Welcome to this Friday morning live stream. I hope you're having a good day. Hopefully, the stream does start working the way it's supposed to. We'll see in just a moment. I think it is. Let me just do an audio check here, and then we will get the lesson started. If you missed it, I was doing some eyebrow motions like that. Um, I think everything's working, right? I think we're good. Well, hello, and welcome to this English lesson about tools. And if you're wondering why it says part 3, it's because in the past, I've done 2 other lessons about tools. I think I did one in 2024, and I think I did one in 2025. And in one of the lessons, I even talked about the verbs that you use to talk about using those tools. So this is technically part 3. So welcome to this English lesson about tools. These will be, I think, except for one tool, all tools that I have not talked about or taught before in a previous lesson. So some of them are somewhat unique, and I will explain in a moment why I chose this topic. But definitely we are going to talk about tools, mostly because this week I received a birthday gift from one of you, and that birthday gift was a chain hoist. So this is something I have talked about before, but it was a wonderful birthday gift. So thank you very much to the person who sent that. I won't mention their name because I'm not sure if they want the public recognition, but sometimes when you teach English on YouTube, people send you gifts for your birthday, and this was certainly a good gift for someone who lives on a farm. So without further delay, welcome to this English lesson about tools. Well, hello, everybody. I hope you are having a good day. Hi to Know That and Sai Sandy, Burgett, Hanitra, Key Park, Aerosmith 77, Freddie Wolf, Unabi, Uliana, Cecilia, Etienne, Mr. Fischeri. Let's see here. SG Nadeau. Hard to say some of the names, but welcome to this English lesson about tools. Let me just do a couple other things here to make sure things are, wow, concurrent users were at, well, 187 already. That's pretty good. If you're wondering, why am I doing this lesson about tools? I did mention it briefly in the introduction, but this week, actually last week, I got an email from one of you saying, hey, I sent you a birthday gift. It's at the, basically the FedEx pickup location. Go pick it up. And then I wasn't able to go that day because I didn't have a vehicle. So I did end up going yesterday, and it was a chain hoist, which is pretty cool. So I thought I should do another lesson about tools. No, that says, maybe your lesson idea might come from building the frame for your solar panels. Possibly. We'll see. There are a lot of different reasons to use tools, and I'm not sure I will use that tool in particular for that, but I am excited to set it up and start using it. I'll give you a hint. The gift was from possibly from the same person that sent me a hammock that I haven't set up yet. So Dory says, I'm very happy to join for my first time, says Dory. Sophia says, hello to you too, Sophia. Freddie says, Bob, bon anniversaire. I guess now it happened, maybe. I think one year, did I say my birthday? I don't remember what all the clues I've given out. Sai Sandy says, I really like the tool series. Okay, so let's get the tool series started. Before we do, though, remember, if you have a question, please use the link in the description or the link in the chat to use the form to submit the question. If you're new here, I will pause at 3 times during the lesson to answer questions from all of the viewers, all of you who are out there learning English. And then I will go back to the lesson. I'll go back and forth, but that's the plan. If you ask a question in the chat and you are a member, I might see it. If you ask a question in the chat and you're not a member, I most likely won't see it. Sometimes the chat moves far too quickly. But I think we should get this lesson started. We'll start with a sip of water, and then we will go. Chain hoist. A lifting device that uses a chain and gears to raise or lower heavy objects. So this is an interesting looking contraption. Basically what it does is it amplifies a person's strength. It makes you stronger than you actually are. Because as you move the one chain quickly, the chain with the hook moves very, very slowly. So it increases your ability to lift. If I could lift 100 pounds myself, with a chain hoist, I could probably lift 2,000 pounds, because as one chain is a loop, as I move that chain, there are gears inside that make the hook move very slowly, which makes you appear stronger than you actually are. So chain hoist, a lifting device that uses a chain and gears to raise or lower heavy objects. Staple gun. This is a very common tool. In fact, sometimes when I do lessons about tools, people say, oh, I'm not interested because I don't like fixing things. I don't like working on things. But I would say half of the tools I'm going to talk about are tools that anybody could use in your house, in your garage, working on fixing like a piece of furniture. So a staple gun, a tool that drives staples into wood or other materials to fasten them together. So a stapler is used to staple paper together, but a staple gun is a much more powerful machine, and it will shoot. I should have put a picture of a staple there, but a staple, this is my impression of a staple. A staple is like a thin piece of metal, and it gets pushed into whatever you're trying to fasten together. So staple gun, a tool that drives staples into wood or other materials to fasten them together. Allen key, a small L-shaped tool used to tighten or loosen bolts with a hexagonal socket, also called a hex wrench. So these are actually quite small. The picture's a little bit big, but these tools are actually quite small. And you use them on, like, there's certain things where you need a little Allen key to tighten it. Actually, not my tripod, but Jen's tripod for her camera, where the legs connect, she needs an Allen key or a hex wrench in order to tighten those every once in a while. They don't stay tight, the little bolts. So it's kind of, we thought it was a good tripod, but it ended up being not a very good tripod. We have to use an Allen key, which is a small L-shaped tool used to tighten or loosen bolts with a little hexagonal socket, and also called a hex wrench. Torque wrench. So this is a little more specialized. A torque wrench is a wrench used to tighten bolts or nuts to a specific amount of force. So if you've ever worked on equipment, sometimes you have to tighten a bolt, and you don't want to just tighten it as far as you can. You'll want to use a torque wrench, and you'll say that you want so many newtons or so many foot-pounds, I think is the other measurement. So you might say like 30 newtons. And then as you turn it, when it gets to that amount of force, it clicks and it won't tighten the bolt or nut anymore. So yes, do I have a torque wrench? I do have a torque wrench. And it is very handy for working on certain things like engines or motors or those kinds of things. A wrench used to tighten bolts or nuts to a specific amount of force. Adjustable wrench. Now this is the kind of wrench everyone should own, whether you like working on equipment or motors or just live in a house or an apartment. An adjustable wrench is a wrench with a movable jaw that fits different sizes of bolts and nuts. This is a very handy tool to have. You see here there are 3 sizes. If you are a homeowner, I recommend you just have a small one. Maybe you have just bought a piece of furniture and you have to put it together yourself. Maybe you have to undo a small bolt on something. An adjustable wrench is a handy type of tool to have. By the way, you also call this in North America a crescent wrench, because I think the most common, I think these actually say crescent on them. The most common kind is made by a company called Crescent. So it's sometimes called a crescent wrench, but I would call it an adjustable wrench. You can spin the little screw in there, and then the jaw opens and shuts. So it's adjustable. So if the bolt is 10 millimeters or 9/16 or 1/2 inch or 12 millimeters, we use both. By the way, in Canada, When you buy tools that are specific sizes, you often end up buying metric and what's called SAE, I think, which is like in inches. So like I can go to my socket set and get a 1/2 inch socket, or I can go and get a 11 millimeter socket. So anyways, an adjustable wrench, movable jaws, fits different size bolts. Needle nose pliers. Pliers with long, narrow jaws used to grip, bend, or reach into tight places. These are really handy. Again, I mentioned earlier, this isn't just about tools that people who love working on equipment need. Some of these tools, I believe everyone should own. If you are in any way inclined to bend or poke or pry things, needle nose pliers are very, very cool to have. As you can see, they have a very long, narrow jaw. So it's easy with needle nose pliers to reach in order to, let's say you drop something somewhere and it's hard to get, you can use needle nose pliers to get them out. But anyways, needle nose pliers. Pliers with long, narrow jaws used to grip, bend, or reach into tight spaces. Now, I don't know around the world whether the tool that we call a vice grip is common. This is a very common tool in North America. A vice grip is actually a brand name. The general term is locking pliers, but the description here is a locking tool that clamps tightly onto an object so it can be held securely. So I own probably 5 pairs of vice grips. We talk about them as pairs because it's similar to a scissors. And they're just handy. I have small ones, I have big ones. There's even needle nose vice grips as well. But I would be curious around the world whether this is a common tool. It's almost like it's the duct tape of tools. You know how duct tape can be used to fix anything? Duct tape is that gray tape. A vice grip can be used as a wrench. It can be used to tighten things. It can be used to squeeze things. It can be used as pliers. It can be used as a clamp to hold something for a long period of time. It's a very, very handy tool for sure. Hey, let's look at some questions. Let's do that. What time is it? Oh, it's 8:41. In the chat, I saw Ralph says, I don't know how good, bad adjustable wrenches are in Canada, but I hate them. They tend to make nuts round when you use them too quickly. Yes, it comes down to, I think Ralph would agree with me. When you buy tools, buy good tools. No, that's different answering. Adjustable wrench in Spanish is hombre solo, man alone. Oh, yes. Very cool. Okay, let me get to the questions from the queue. From Know That, hello, Bob. Of all your tools, which one would you say is the most reliable and which one is your secret favorite? A heartfelt thank you, Bob. So there's a saying in English where I forget how this goes exactly, but if your only tool is a hammer, everything looks like a nail. And I would say a hammer, something that you use to put in nails or to bang things, is one of my favorite tools. But I would add to that what we just talked about. A vice grip is a very handy tool. And I would say if I was to put together a little toolbox for someone as a gift, I would make sure they have a measuring tape, 3 screwdrivers, a pair of needle nose pliers, a vice grip, a hammer, and maybe a little level or something like that. Those are, I think, the basics. Know That says, is there a tool you've always wanted to add to your little home improvement arsenal? Thanks, Bob. Yes. So the chain hoist is a welcome addition. I've always wanted one, but it's not something that you just go out and buy because it's kind of a unique thing to have. My son also is really excited that we have one. So that was the first slide we looked at. From Unsel. Hi, Mr. Bob. Have you ever tried using a 3D printer or a CNC machine? Are you interested in that side of modern making? Thanks. You're awesome. I have seen them at work. I have a friend that has one. I personally have not used one. Oh, wait, I've used a 3D printer at school. I'm talking about the CNC machine. Both of them are just cool because it blends together using a computer to design something and then having it printed or fabricated by the machine. So very, very cool. So happy early or belated birthday, Mr. Bob. Not sure if you've mentioned it, but I'm subtly trying to narrow things down. Cancer or Leo? Feel free to share if you'd like. Let me see here. How do I give a hint? Let me see. I will give one more hint out. Here, I'll just do this. There we go. That's your hint for the day. Okay, let's see here. From Hama. Hi, Uncle. What's that one item at work you always lose track of, even though you have a ton of them? So one of the common things that happens when you have tools is you might use them in different places and you might lose them. That's what Hama is referring to. For me, in North America, probably the most common tool to lose is a 1/2-inch wrench. So a 1/2-inch wrench is one of the most common wrench sizes, and also a 1/2-inch socket on a ratchet. So that's like a ratchet clicks as you turn it. Because so many bolts and nuts on the farm are that size, I tend to lose those the most. And the same was true when I was a kid, when my parents were farming here. So many things were fixed using a 1/2-inch wrench that it was easy to lose them, because you would leave them the last place you fix something. From Judith. Hi, Bob. Do you consider words as a tool? A journalist or reporter may reach his goals by his words. Thanks. In some way, yes, because you can use the words to build sentences and put meaning into things. So yes, I would consider that a tool. From Unabi. Hello, Mr. Bob. Just a quick, simple question for warming up. LOL. Are you good at soldering? No. Have you ever fixed any electronic devices at home by yourself? Yes. But if I have any soldering to do, I actually have a friend whose job it is. He specializes in fixing electronic equipment. So I would most likely ask him. But soldering jobs don't come up that often. But no, I'm not very good at soldering. By the way, soldering is when you take a heat source and what's called solder, which is like a gray wire, which has flux, or I forget exactly. And then you heat up something, and I'm not explaining it very well. We use it for pipes here in Canada as well. We connect copper pipes together by soldering them. And Judith. Hi, Bob. What kind of useful tool have you got for your birthday? If you got more, which was the best? Thanks. So a couple years ago, a friend of mine gave me a set of closed-ended ratcheting wrenches, and they swivel. They're really handy. Very specialized, but those are very handy. So I did get those for my birthday. From Judith as well. Hi, Bob. What kind of tool proved to be the most useless you have ever got or bought? What might have seemed good at the first sight? Thanks. The most useless tool is a cheap tool. I can't stress enough, you will want to spend good money when buying tools. Most tools are made of metal, and when you buy cheap tools, the metal is softer or it's not hardened as well. So if you buy a cheap wrench, you might even break it or bend it. If you buy a cheap hammer, the end might start to get kind of flattened funny. So I would say the kind of tool that is the most useless is a cheap tool. And the reason you bought it was because it wasn't very much money. So always spend good money on tools. From Takagero. Hello, dear teacher Bob. A few years ago, you said you often leave tools in the places you last used it. Is it still so? Not as bad. I think I've become better at cleaning up tools and putting them back in their proper place. And I do need to credit my oldest son for helping with that, because he created a work area in our shed and all of the tools have a place there. So that has helped quite a bit. Cecilia, if you were going to a remote island, what one tool would you take with you? I love tools. Thanks, Bob. I think a good knife. That's the first thing that comes to mind. I would probably take a Swiss Army knife. Not exact, kind of a pocket knife, but also a tool. If you don't know what a Swiss Army knife is, it's It's a little jackknife, we call it, with blades and screwdrivers and a little file. It has all kinds of things. That would probably be the best thing to take with. From Unsol, what are your go-to tools, and is there a specific area like woodworking or repairs that feels most rewarding to you? Thanks, you're awesome. I most enjoy building things out of wood. So I do need to build a little storage locker outside out of wood later this summer. So I will be using my saw and my hammer and my cordless drill. My go-to tool is a cordless drill. It can be used to put screws in, to remove screws. You can even use it to drill holes. It's just a very, very handy tool. Ralph says, that's what I meant, Bob. My regular tools are quite expensive, but if you are at a friend's house and he provides you a simple wrench, it's most of the time soft and tends to open a bit. Yeah, you can wreck. You put a lot of force on a tool, so spend good money. That was from the chat from Ralph. Unsol. With all your practical skills, is there any home or farm repair you'd still never try to DIY? Thanks, you're awesome. Bye. I don't like doing plumbing. Plumbing is when you connect pipes, especially inside of a building. I will do work with hoses for irrigation outside because I don't care if it leaks a little bit or if I do it wrong. But inside my own home, like if I had to replace a tap on a sink or a toilet, I would hire a plumber for sure. Cecilia in the chat says, thank you, Bob. I love Swiss Army knives. Yes, that is definitely what I would recommend if you were stuck on and had to survive. From Know That? Question. Just a little fun question. Who would you say is the better craftsman, you or Bib? Just kidding. Thanks, Bob. You're one of a kind. Bib borrows the tools and doesn't return them. Bib is the worst kind of friend in that regard. Really good at helping with things, but you should never let Bib borrow tools. Okay, we got to get back to the lesson. So one more from Hanitra. Hello, Teacher Bob. Modern tools save time and energy. What tool do you think the most practical you ever have, and you can advise us? Thank you. Again, I would say a cordless drill. I don't have a slide in the lesson, but a cordless drill is just a very handy power tool to have. It's what I would highly recommend. The Swiss Army knife. They should sponsor me. Wire cutter. A tool used to cut wire and small cables. So this is actually, I think I would call this a side cutter. Actually thought I had one here. I have some of my tools right over there. So it's very nice for cutting zip ties, by the way, cables. It's tiny and really easy to use to cut wire and other small cables. So a wire cutter, you can see it has two very sharp jaws. So just very good at cutting things. Wire cutter. And there's a lot of different types of wire cutters. This is just one example. Wire stripper. A tool used to remove the plastic coating from electrical wires without cutting the actual wire. So it's a little hard to see. Let's make this really big. He's actually cutting the wire. He's not using the little wire stripper part of the tool. Maybe this is a bad picture, but a wire stripper is a tool. So if you have a wire with a plastic coating and inside is a copper or aluminum wire, the wire stripper allows you to remove the plastic from the end and doesn't cut the actual wire. So if you're an electrician or if you're doing any kind of electrical work, you use a wire stripper to expose the actual wire so then you can then connect it to another wire or connect it to something in an electrical panel. So wire stripper, a tool used to remove the plastic coating from electrical wires without cutting the actual wire. Very handy. Do not use your teeth as a wire stripper. Some people try to do that. It's not a good idea. They use like just a normal knife and then they use their teeth. Not good for your teeth. Go buy a wire stripper. Tin snips, a hand tool used to cut thin sheets of metal. So as many of you know, when I was younger, in my university years, in the summer, I would work in construction. One of the jobs we had was building chicken barns, and chicken barns are covered with what's called sheet metal. So very thin, big sheets of metal. And we would often use tin snips to cut the metal. By the way, did you know there are left-handed, right-handed, and center tin snips? I guess not left or right-handed, but the one pair allows you to cut to the right, the other pair allows you to cut to the left, and the other pair allows you to cut straight. I don't remember which color is which, but tin snips, a hand tool used to cut thin sheets of metal. A file, a tool with a rough surface used to smooth, shape, or sharpen metal, wood, or plastic. If you have fingernail clippers, there might actually be a little file inside of the fingernail clipper that you can use to file your nails. But these files are used for filing wood or metal or plastic. So the blade isn't smooth, it's very rough. And so when you push it along a surface, it removes a small part of that surface. In some ways, it's a little bit like sandpaper, which you would use to smooth something off. So a tool with a rough surface used to smooth, shape, or sharpen metal, wood, or plastic. Sorry, my chair isn't in the right spot. By the way, the one closest to me is just a flat file. The one in the middle is round, and we call it a rat tail file because the file itself looks like a rat's tail. Kind of a weird name. Chisel, a tool with a sharp edge used to chip, carve, shape, or cut wood, stone, or metal. Most of the time, if I use a chisel, I use one like this. This is a chisel you would use for stone. You might use it for bricks. You might use it for blocks. You hold it with one hand, and it has a nice guard. I actually have almost exactly this chisel. So when you hit it with the hammer, it reduces the possibility of hurting your hand. But if you had a brick and you wanted to split that brick into two, you would use a chisel and a hammer, and the pointy end would slowly chip away and eventually break it into a chisel. A rubber mallet, a hammer with a rubber head used to strike objects without damaging them. So I'm not sure if you were aware of the term mallet. A mallet is any kind of large hammer. It's not a sledgehammer, but you can have a mallet that's made of wood or rubber like this one. I have a rubber mallet because what were we doing? It's just really nice. If you have to hit a piece of wood, like if you needed to hit a piece of wood to put it into a certain area, if you use a rubber mallet, you don't damage the wood while you're doing it. So rubber mallet, a hammer with a rubber head, see the big rubber head, used to strike objects without damaging them. Chalk line, a tool that snaps a straight chalk line onto a surface to help with marking or cutting. So there's three pictures here. At the very far end is the actual chalk line. It's a small windable device with a string in it. And you fill it with, the middle picture here is a bottle of chalk. It's usually red or blue. And that chalk is just a very fine powder. So you put the chalk in the chalk line. Okay, there's a little door that opens and you put the chalk in. And then when you pull the string out, the string is covered with chalk. Then you hook it and you pull it tight and you snap it. This picture, let me see how big we can get the picture. You can sort of see here, he has the blue line pulled out and he's going to pull it up and let it go. And when the string snaps down, it leaves a long blue or red line of chalk. So you can then cut or mount things. You have a line to work on. Hopefully I explained that well. Chalk line, a tool that snaps a straight chalk line onto a surface to help with marking or cutting. Plumb bob. We don't actually use these very often anymore. I think bricklayers might still use them, but a plumb bob is a weighted tool on the end of a string used to check if something is perfectly vertical. So when you hang a plumb bob, naturally the weight, because of gravity, when it stops moving, the string will have created a perfectly straight vertical line, 90 degrees perpendicular from the earth. So when you build a building, you want it to be straight. And so you might use a plumb bob to make sure things stay straight. I actually don't own a plumb bob, and I'll explain why in just a moment. But a very handy way to build a wall or a building so it's completely straight. The reason I don't have a plumb bob is because I have a level. A level is a tool used to check if a surface is perfectly horizontal or vertical. So a level, when you put a level on top of something, there's a little bubble inside of a little glass vial. And if you put the level perfectly level, the bubble's in the middle. You can also use it vertically, where there's a bubble and you can move it back and forth. And when the bubble is perfectly in the middle, you have a wall that is vertical. Because I do not build things that are really tall, a level works fine for my case for doing vertical or horizontal leveling. But a plumb bob, if I built like a tower, I would use a plumb bob. But instead, I just use a level. And I have two levels probably. I think I have a 4-foot level, like a really long one, because it's more accurate, and then a few shorter ones. Laser level, a tool that projects a straight laser line to help with leveling and aligning. So this has become very common in the construction industry. A laser level is a very handy tool. It's able to fire a horizontal laser and a vertical laser onto a surface, and then you can see perfectly if it is level. Let's say you were hanging a picture on a wall. If you used a laser level, you could get the picture completely level vertically and horizontally by following the lines on the wall. Stud finder. I'm not sure how houses are built in every part of the world. In North America, most of our houses are built using wood, and we have what are called studs in the wall. Every 16 inches or every 24 inches, there is a vertical piece of wood inside the wall. So if you want to hang a picture on the wall, you often will want to put a nail into a stud, but you can't see them because there is a surface on top of them. So you use a stud finder, a tool used to locate wooden or metal studs behind a wall. It's a very handy tool. Every homeowner should have one. You put it on the wall and click the button and you slide, and then eventually it tells you where the stud is in the wall. And then you can put a nail or screw into the wall. By the way, there is a joke about a stud finder. So a stud is another informal way of referring to like a very handsome, attractive man. Like, oh, he's a stud. I would never use that term, but it is an English term. So some people will take the stud finder and they'll go like, beep, beep, beep. Oh, it works. Pretending that they're like a real stud kind of thing. Kind of a lewd joke. Is that what it, not quite, but anyways, a funny way of using a stud finder. Hey, let's go to members only chat for 10 minutes here. Let me get that turned on for everybody. Let me find the setting to do that. And then I will answer questions directly from the chat. Let's see here, members, there we go. And if you're wondering what is happening, the lesson will continue in 10 minutes. I have about 9 slides left. But if you are a member of the channel, if you have clicked the join button and you have decided to support me, you can ask me questions directly in the chat, and I will continue to answer questions from the form as well. So once again, thank you to all of you who are members. And if you are not a member and want to thank me in some way, consider becoming a member for a month or 2. I really do appreciate it, and it does help me run the channel. I want to scroll back though. Here's supposed to be a beautiful language. Mr. Fisher, I can imagine a dad coming up with a lot of dad jokes with a stud finder. Yes. John Wedge, a stud finder is becoming very popular here in Brazil. It's a handy tool. Know that from the chat says, hey Bob, what are your plans for today and the weekend? Do you have anything special on your to-do list? Thanks. We are at some point planning to, trying to think which weekend this is. Yes, I think we are going to go later this weekend to see Jen's parents. I think that is one of the plans for the weekend. Other than that, the weather has been much cooler. So we might spend some time. We might go for a hike or do something fun outside. Freddie, just FYI, fortunately, your awesome lesson hasn't been interrupted by any advertisement so far. I don't know if you have changed any settings. The fact remains that it never happened again. Thanks, Freddie, for letting me know. So what YouTube did is I like to have the ads off during a live stream, and they made it so they're automatically on, and I have to choose to turn them off now. They used to be the other way. So I don't mind ads. I just don't like ads during a lesson. So there's ads at the beginning and there's probably ads at the end. But during the lesson, I like it to stay clean. John Wedge, hey Bob, I arrived late today, but I'm here. Great class. Like you, I really like tools. If I could, I'd have a huge warehouse with everything inside, just like a tool store. Yes. Now, saying tool store, though, brings up the danger of going to the tool store or the hardware store. There are too many tools, and sometimes you feel like buying all of them. Cy Sandy, my favorite tool is a screwdriver because I use it most frequently, especially the ones with magnetic effect. It prevents me from dropping screws or nails, which really makes me frustrated. Yes, screwdrivers are super handy. I just have a little one here. So this is kind of a fun one because the bits come out and then the bits are inside. I don't know if you can see that because it doesn't always focus. So you can take the bits out. Now I can't get it back together. How does it go back together? There we go. So it's just a handy household screwdriver. Very, very handy. Handy. Just keep saying handy. Don't forget to give a thumbs up, says John Wedge. Thanks, John. No, that says, speaking of lists, how's your list of little fix-it jobs going? Not very good. Have you already started ticking off some of the tasks? A few, but I don't know if you guys noticed, but I was pretty lazy this week. I spent a lot of time doing things that weren't work again. So I know 2 weeks ago, I took a full week off from YouTube. And then this week, I just decided I'm just going to work on some other things. So don't worry. Things will return to normal on this channel soon. How's the air quality currently, says Mr. Fishieri. Very good. In fact, the weather has cooled off. It was only 22 degrees the last 2 days. And it's just really nice outside. So speaking of tasks like Know That was asking, I'll probably get a few of those done this weekend. From Alexander, hi Bob. It was recently announced that Trump implemented a new tariff on Canada. Any influence on your life? So you know how if something happens over and over again, eventually you just don't care anymore and you just don't listen? One of the things that happened to me about a year and a half ago is I just stopped watching the news when it came to things that were happening in another country that I don't want to say too much about. So I think the whole world is in the same boat as Canada. We're just kind of watching and sometimes wondering what's going to happen next. There, I'll just be very vague. Any influence on my life? No. Generally, tariffs don't actually affect the country they're put on immediately. They generally increase prices for the people in the country where the tariff is made. So we'll see. Know that. Just, thanks to Ralph for sending 5 gift memberships. So if you are the 5 people who received a free gift membership, if you go to the posts section of this YouTube channel, you will see all of the member posts for the next 30 days. Thank you very much, Ralph, for that gift. Awesome. Know that. Just out of curiosity, how often do you bump into one of your students or someone from your school during summer break? Quite often. I'm just going to grab my phone. So yesterday was a 2-for-1 day because I ran into a former student at the gas station last night, but I also ran into, let me see if I can get this on my phone without, I don't want any private information on the screen. I was at Walmart yesterday. I think I can show this. And I ran into a viewer, and I do have his name. Let me see here. Azuabar. I think I got that right, hopefully, if he's watching. From Brazil, now lives in Canada. Originally moved to Nova Scotia, now lives in my part of Ontario, and came up at the Walmart parking lot and said, "Hi, Bob," or "Are you Bob?" And I said, "Yep." And he thanked me for all my lessons, and I chatted with him for a minute or two. So it was good. So yes, former high school student, saw at the gas station, and I guess former YouTube student. He, I think, has graduated from needing my lessons. His English was very, very good. From Burgett, Bob, that's a wise decision not to listen to the news on this matter. I do watch a lot of news about sports, about other parts of the world. Generally, as I learn about where all of you are from, I become more interested in the news in your country, in France or in Brazil or in Argentina or in Germany or in Austria or Japan. Like I've started to, and I think I've started to watch a little more YouTube of vloggers from those countries. Let's see here. From John, awesome Bob, Freddie. One day I have to build a wall, but unfortunately, despite the plumb line, I didn't succeed to make it straight. I must have two left hands. Je suis très mauvais en bricolage. C'est catastrophique. I need to work on my French accent. Catastrophique. I start teaching French again in a month and a half. So know that. Bob, do you have a tool belt or a special pair of work pants where you can keep your tools while working around the house? I have a tool belt still from my days as a construction worker. And so a tool belt, the one I have is leather. It has a place for my hammer. It has a place for a utility knife, a place for a tape measure, and it has pouches for nails or screws or whatever I'm working on. So yes, I do have a tool belt. That would have been a good one to have on this list. Oh well. Key Park, I really like tools. I enjoy to look at my dad fixing watch with a whole set of small tools when I was little. Oh, fixing a watch. Yeah, you would need really small tools to do that. Let's see here. Brent is here, has sent one gift membership. By the way, Americans and Canadians are still getting along well. I equate it to, it's like if you're a kid and your parents are fighting, that's how it feels a little bit in Canada and I think in the United States right now. So hopefully our parents stay together. We'll see. Hopefully you understand the metaphor there. Okay. Hi, Brent. Thanks for the gift membership. Crimson, you can now see all of the members' posts on that tab. Let me just make sure. I think I missed one here. Key part. Oh, Mr. Fisher, you were asking about vice grips. Yeah, they're not common here in Southeast Asia where I'm from. Stud finders are also not common here. The tool stud finder, I mean, LOL, yeah. So it depends on how things are constructed, but I would guarantee you the vice grip type tool will become one of the most popular tools around the world if we wait 10 or 20 years. Let's see. Know that. Could you explain the meaning of the expression no easy feet? Thanks a lot, Bob. Okay, so I used to do a live stream every Saturday and I did 4 short lessons on my second channel every week, and it was no easy feat. Like I was way too busy. This is 2 or 3 years ago. So when you say something is no easy feat, it simply stresses that it was not easy. Becoming president of the United States is no easy feat. If Brent wanted to become president, he would have to fundraise a lot of money and be on. It's no easy feat. It is a lot of hard work. Alexander, after the Canadian team was eliminated from the World Cup, what team was the most favorite? I cheered for France and then they lost. And then I didn't cheer for either team in the final, which I think was wise. Cy Sandy, some tools need batteries to work. You take out the battery when you finish using them. I found the battery will leak when the tool is not used for a long time. Not with my cordless drill, but I probably should. Nice and cool in France now, I assume. Oh, Freddie and Brent are chatting. Okay. I should finish this lesson off, shouldn't I? Let me turn off members only chat. Let me get to that part of the thing. And I know if you have a question, I should just answer this question for a sec from Pony Dragon. Hi, Bob. Wish you a beautiful day. Can I use the verb use, little fix here, for every tool? Thanks for answering. Yes, you can use a hammer. You can use a drill. You're going to need to use a wrench for that. You might need to use a screwdriver. But most tools also have a verb that matches their name. A drill can drill a hole. A hammer can hammer a nail. A screwdriver can screw in a screw, I guess is what we would say. But use is the general term for all of them. Okay, let's finish this lesson off. Paint roller, a tool with a rotating foam or fabric cover used to apply paint to large surfaces. And it just struck me that this might be one that I taught before. I think this is in one of the other tool lessons. So this is a review slide. A paintbrush has bristles and it's not very wide. If you need to paint an entire wall, you would use a paint roller, which is a tool with a rotating foam or fabric cover used to apply paint to large surfaces. If you want to paint something quickly, use a paint roller. It'll go very, very fast. Now, what you're painting needs to be relatively smooth, though. Pickaxe, a heavy tool with a pointed metal head used to break hard ground or rocks. The only reason I added this tool is because I think if any of you have played Minecraft, you are probably familiar with a pickaxe. It is not a common tool. I do not own one. If I needed to dig a hole, I would use a shovel. And if I needed to dig a large hole, I would hire a man or woman with an excavator to come and dig the hole. But a long time ago, people would have used a pickaxe to basically help dig the hole, a shovel and a pickaxe. A heavy tool with a pointed metal head used to break hard ground or rocks. Floor jack, a hydraulic tool with wheels used to lift a vehicle off the ground. So you could just call it a jack, but this specific type of jack is called a floor jack. You can see that it has small wheels on the bottom, so you can drive it on the floor. It wouldn't work very well in the lawn or on a gravel driveway, but in a workshop, if you have a nice concrete floor, you can use a floor jack. You can drive it and then you crank it and there's a little hydraulic cylinder. Every time you pump, it goes up a bit and it will lift whatever you are working on. So floor jack, a hydraulic tool with wheels used to lift a vehicle off the ground. Funnel, a tool with a wide opening and narrow spout used to pour liquids into small openings. I think you're all familiar with what a funnel is. If you need to put oil in your car, it's nice to use a funnel. If you are putting spaghetti sauce in jars, you might also use a funnel for that. Grease gun, a tool used to apply grease to moving parts for lubrication. This is not something the average homeowner would own, but I do have a grease gun because I have farm equipment. And sometimes parts of the farm equipment that turn within each other, they'll have a grease nipple, which is a small spot where you can put the grease gun, and then you can pump grease into that part of it. That's what this man is doing here. If we make it really big, you can see he has put the nozzle onto the grease nipple, and he is putting grease into that moving part of that tractor. By the way, grease, this is a bad description, but it's like really thick oil, I guess. Like it's more of a gel, but it's definitely an oil product that helps to lubricate. Oil can, a small container with a spout used to apply oil to machines or tools. So I use a grease gun for bearings and pivot points on equipment. I don't use oil. Oil goes away too quickly, but I do put oil onto chains. And you might even have an oil can that you use to put oil on a bike chain or another type of chain. Battery charger, a device used to recharge a battery by supplying it with electricity. So you will plug this into the wall, and then you would use these two alligator clips. Anyone want to guess why they're called alligator clips? You'll put one on each terminal of the battery, the positive and the negative terminals. And then the battery charger will take electricity from the wall outlet and use a transformer to match the voltage of the battery and charge the battery. So battery charger, a device used to recharge a battery by supplying it with electricity. Zip ties and bungee cords, two of my favorite things. Zip ties are plastic fasteners used to bundle or secure wires, cables, or other objects together. The last thing I used bungee cords or zip ties for was to attach reflective things to poles in my soybean field to scare the geese away. But a zip tie has two ends. It has kind of like a little end with a clicker, like and a pointed end. And then when you put the one in, it goes click, 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 and it will tighten, but it will not loosen. You have to actually cut them with wire cutters. Bungee cord, stretchy cords with hooks on the ends used to secure or hold objects in place. The reason I said zip ties and bungee cords are two of my favorite things, it's because they're just so handy. If you have to, like if you put something on the roof of your van and you want to make sure it doesn't fly off, you would use bungee cords to hold it down. Bungee cords, stretchy cords with hooks on the ends used to secure or hold objects in place. Post hole digger. There are two kinds. Actually, there's more than two kinds, but it's a tool used to dig holes for fence posts. When I was young and at my first part-time job, or one of my first part-time jobs, I had to use the manual fence post digger. We sometimes call it a jab auger, I think, as well, where you jab it in the ground and then you pull out a bit of soil and then you jab it in the ground. That's how you would use it. That was a post hole digger. But eventually my boss rented the far one, which was, that one looks electric. The one we had was gas powered, and you could use that to dig post holes. But anyways, a tool used to dig holes for fence posts. A fence post is a post you put in the ground when you're building a fence. Heat gun, a power tool that blows very hot air to soften paint, shrink plastic, or dry materials. These are dangerous. Be very careful if you have a heat gun. The air that comes out of the end of a heat gun is hot enough to injure you, to burn you, but they are a very handy tool to have. If you need to soften paint, to remove paint, if you are using heat shrink tubing and you want to shrink the tubing, a heat gun is a great way to do it. Caulking gun, a tool used to apply caulk or sealant from a tube into cracks and gaps. So if you have a window that leaks, you might want to go buy a tube of caulking and a caulking gun, and you cut the end off the tip and you can put caulking into the gap where the window is leaking. Maybe at the bottom of, maybe you have a door on a shower and water leaks at the bottom. You might want to put caulking along. So this is a caulking gun. You get a tube of caulking, you cut off the end, you have to punch the end with a nail, and then you click it, like a click, 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 and it slowly pushes the plunger in, and then the caulking will come out the other end. Nail gun, a power tool that drives nails into wood or other materials quickly and easily. So this nail gun is powered by air, so high pressure air. You can have, I think there are nail guns now that run off a battery as well. I'm not sure how those work, but you can put a nail in with a hammer, or you can just go ka-ch, ka-ch, ka-ch. It's my sound effect for a nail gun. A power tool that drives nails into wood or other materials quickly and easily. That's the end of the formal part of the lesson. We will now finish all of the questions. Let me see here. Sip of water. Oh, not too many remaining. Judith, hi Bob, what is the smallest but most practical or useful tool you know? Do you have one? If not, why? Thanks. So this is a handy tool. So this is a screwdriver that has multiple tips. I would say if you're going to buy a screwdriver to use in your home, buy a tool like that. But again, I think a basic toolkit should have a hammer, some screwdrivers, a knife, measuring tape, maybe a small level. I forget what else I said, but there are some that are just some tools that are just very, very handy. From Unabi, let me be honest. I hate plumbing and every work related to it. What about you, Mr. Bob? Do tubes, taps, and rubber gaskets scare you? I do not like plumbing. I call a plumber when we have a plumbing problem because I do not like fixing plumbing because I'm always worried there's going to be a leak later. Let's see here. Freddie Wolf says a postal digger are also useful to make holes in icy lakes or rivers in order to be able to ice fish. Yes, I don't know whether that is correct or not. To be able to fish. Yeah, we would say in order to ice fish. But yes, definitely people use a postal auger for that. From Ismail, I hope you're doing well, Bob. Of all the projects you've done with your tools, which gave you the most satisfaction? Wonder if it was your patio or something you've never mentioned. Thanks. There are many projects that give me a lot of satisfaction. Our front entranceway patio that I did 2 years ago, excuse me. I think I cough at the same time every live stream. That is one of my most satisfying projects. It stopped our basement from leaking. It's a nice area to sit at night when the weather cools off. Okay, thanks, Ismail, for that. I will skip that one. I think I need to check another one, don't I? Thank you very much. Okay, skip. From Hasham, hi Bob, sir. Today AI is the greatest tool. Back in your times, which is the most advanced tool as a student? Probably the graphing calculator, the calculator that was more than just a calculator. That is probably the most advanced tool that I used as a student. Hey, that's it. The lesson is over. A few things you should know. This lesson will be edited. I will remove all of your wonderful questions and answers and turn it into a pure Q&A English lesson. So a pure lesson for you where you can review all of these, I think 31 different tools. So if you do want to make sure you remember this well and you want to review this, please watch it again or listen to it again. That will come out in a couple of days. And then from the chat, Know that says, thank you so much for the awesome lesson, for your time, Bob. Wishing you and your family a lovely Friday and a fantastic weekend. Stay safe and best wishes to Jen and the kids. You're very welcome. Sophia says, thank you, Bob. It was a really useful lesson. Many words are new for me. Even in my original language, I didn't know all these tool names. Have a great day. When I do the tool lessons, sometimes people aren't super interested, but they get a lot of views later. And I get a lot of comments from people who are like, I'm in trade school and my instructor said I should watch this lesson. So hopefully this one is also useful to people in those situations. Sonia says, thanks so much. No problem. Unsel says, great lesson as always. Thank you for answering my questions and have a fantastic weekend. You're awesome. Bye. You're very welcome. Anyways, I'm going to go. Thanks for watching. Have a good weekend. And I hopefully will have a video out by Tuesday. We'll see how the weekend goes. I'm feeling like a little more relaxed in July than I normally am. And so that is resulting in me making less content on YouTube. So sorry about that, but we'll see how things go. Ralph says, thank you so much again, Bob. Great lesson and very helpful and a must remember. Have a great weekend. You too. So bye to Freddie, Wanda, Anitra, Bridget, Gaeta, Uliana, Mr. Fishery, John Wedge, Know That, American English, Brent, Unabi, Uliana, Aerosmith, and all of you. Bye, Alexander. I can't say bye to everybody, but bye, everybody. Have a great day.